we support this campaign as much as we can. Um, I will talk a little bit about policy, but not much. I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions. My goals for this call are to talk to you all about what questions you may have about the campaign or any of our positions, but also to talk about how we can organize moving forward. So I'm not going to speak for too much longer because I want to keep it open for dialogue and discussion. I want to talk about Joe Biden for a minute too. I mean, I think right now we've seen what's happening in our country. We're literally walking on the streets with masks. I just saw somebody on this Zoom call with a mask. I don't know where they went, but that's really what it has come to in terms of the lack of competence that we have at the presidency and across the executive branch. And Joe Biden is a guy who brings that experience, but he also brings something that's very unique to what we see today, which is compassion, empathy, and integrity. Um, I've been part of email chains among our team at the campaign level of Biden literally calling people that have coronavirus and talking to them and hearing their stories. There was a Muslim Palestinian American in Dearborn he called a few weeks ago who literally he spoke to for 22 minutes just to connect with him, just to understand his story about his family, his culture, his religion, his background, what he was dealing with. This was a guy who was in quarantine for a couple of weeks in his own home away from his wife and kids and who was actually really sick. Joe Biden called this guy and these are things that he does, as you know, with others who have, for example, speech impediments that he mentors young people. It just shows you the guy cares. Like these aren't things that we promote on the website or on social media or in the press, but they're just things that he does because he wants to connect with voters. And I think that empathy is a stark contrast to what we see today in the White House. And I'll just close with saying that, and obviously we will have a discussion with that when Joe Biden becomes president, or sorry, the nominee for the Democrats, he will be the most progressive Democratic nominee or presidential nominee in the history of this country. And some people, when I say that, are caught off guard and they say, Joe Biden, he's a moderate, middle of the road guy. Well, if you look at his plans on healthcare, where he speaks very clearly about expanding Obamacare, adding a public option, expanding Medicaid access for free to those who are in states that don't have Medicaid expansion. When he talks about free college tuition for those who make less than $125,000 a year and eliminating their student debt. When you look at his positions on criminal justice reform, where he opposes private prisons, opposes mass incarceration with a focus on rehabilitation. He talks a lot um, about sorry, what's the right word about eliminating the death penalty, eliminating mandatory minimum sentencing. He talks about decriminalizing cannabis and expunging previous records on cannabis. On the environment, he has a $1.7 trillion plan to tackle climate change, which would create 10 million new green jobs and get the US to net zero emissions by 2050. And he has a robust immigration policy where he talks about increasing our refugee admissions to 125,000 in his first year, which is more than what President Obama had, and doing things like eliminating the Muslim ban on day one. So I really think it's important for us to talk about, or really to look at what his positions are and becoming familiar with them so we can talk about them. Because I think, especially in our communities, people care a lot about policy. And I'm speaking more informally to you all because I know most of you, but I spend a lot of time talking about policy, policy, policy. And I've literally spent hours just getting up to speed on things. I think part of it's on the campaign to release those in a digestible way that is easy for people to understand and absorb. But I think it's really important for us from a community perspective to look at what he's actually been saying and to understand what these positions are and talk to our community members about them because there's so much focus from our communities on policy. I'm really interested in a robust conversation with everyone. So with that, I'll leave it there. Olivia, I'm not sure if you want to moderate, but feel free for people who are on Zoom to just raise your hand. Olivia can call on you and unmute you if you're on the phone, which I don't think anyone is, but press *9 and that'll raise your hand on the phone.
Absolutely. We have a question from Naveed. Naveed, do you want to get started? He had a foreign policy question.
Well, first of all, thank you, Farouk, for making yourself available for the community. It is something that we need to do it more than a few times, because our community definitely needs to hear directly from all these advisors, and at one time, hopefully, from Biden himself. You explained a lot of things which already gave many answers pertaining to the upcoming policy of the new president. But I feel the same thing, and I'm sure many Americans and many Muslims have these questions. Tell us about, if there is a Biden presidency, how would it be different than Obama, especially dealing with immigrants? Would that policy continue, like sending back all those illegals or undocumented folks who were here in our country? We did not have a very good experience in Obama administration, for sure. And how would it be different in drone strikes, which you can call it, I'll call it illegal targeted killing. And after Obama, Trump administration continued that attacks as U.S. counterterrorism strategy. How would that be different in Biden's presidency, please?
Yeah, I think it would be very different. So first of all, if you saw Joe Biden, and even Obama said that 12 years ago, we were just in a different time and it required a different agenda. And I think Joe Biden's agenda definitely builds on what Obama did, but it's also got some differences, right? I mean, immigration is one area to just draw a little bit of a contrast. And that's also because our times have changed. Biden has said first that he will restore DACA to support the Dreamers, something that this administration has tried to abolish. That's something that's probably more of a continuation. But he's also said that he's committed to putting in the political capital to pass comprehensive immigration reform. He's also, as I said about the refugee admissions, increased the numbers from what Obama originally was doing in his last year. I'll give you an example. Just in last year, our refugee admissions, I don't know the exact number, but it was somewhere less than 20,000. It was somewhere between 16 and 18,000. I was doing some work on Syria, and I don't know if it was 2017 or 2018. Our Syrian refugee admissions under this administration for one of those years was like 600 people. It was abysmal. So I think he's committed for the U.S. to increase its support and take bigger responsibility on refugee admissions. He's also talked about actually halting deportations for his first 100 days to really get a grip on what this administration has been doing, because it's just been chaos. And those of you who are immigration attorneys can probably say more than me about that. And lastly, he's talked about ICE. There's been a lot of conversations around the role that ICE has played, especially in targeting families and people who are contributors to our country, who are paying taxes, who are unfairly and disproportionately impacted by the way ICE is operating. He's talked about a robust education and training program and making sure that we're not weaponizing ICE to go after these kind of people, and to really focus on national security risks and crimes and things like that. So I think it'll be a stark difference. On drone attacks, I don't have a clear answer for you, and I'm sorry if I can't answer every question because there's a lot, but this has come up and it is something that I'm waiting on some answers from our policy team on. But I think philosophically, and we saw, especially with Donald Trump, how he's used these programs, especially with what happened in Iraq with Qasem Soleimani. Biden is a multilateral person. He believes that our foreign policy should be centered around democracy and human rights. He believes in working with our allies. And he also believes that whatever we do, whether it's military, the military option should be after we expand a robust diplomatic effort, which is something that's a complete, opposite of what this administration's been doing, especially with the gutting of the State Department. He wants to bring those soft skills back in terms of diplomacy. But when we do use force, we've talked about, and I can get more language for you on how do we make sure that we're following the law, we're following international law, and we're also not targeting and harming innocent civilians. And I think there will be a much bigger emphasis on that than you see now. So I hope that answers most of your questions, and I'm happy to take more and have a.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sure many folks have a question. Just whenever you get a chance, do talk about a little bit specifically what India has been doing with all the Muslims. And not only Muslims in India, but in Rohingya and Uyghur and in Syria and all those things. When you have a chance, please talk about that a little bit as well. Please take.
Yeah, definitely. And I also want to point everyone to one thing that I forgot to mention, by the way, was that really the first month and a half of me being on the job was how do we lay a good foundation of relationship building and trust with our communities. I've been doing a lot of these events, like I said, but we also had a really strong statement from the vice president on when Ramadan started. So I would really point people to that just to get a sense as to how does he view us, right? I remember in 2016, people were cringing when Bill Clinton got on the stage at the DNC and said something like, if you love America and hate terrorism, join us, or you're with us. And we really have had issues with Muslim communities being stereotyped. And I think you'll see from what's been coming from the vice president in terms of the Ramadan statement, with tweets, with the Muslim American page on our website that we just launched on Sunday. It talks about some of these issues, but it also shows that he has a real appreciation for the daily contributions our communities are making. And we've done a very, we've been very deliberate about how we talk about Muslim Americans to make sure that we're highlighting that. But some of the issues you mentioned are on the website, and I'll talk about them here. I see Wael has a hand up if you want to go next.
Yeah. Hey, man. Salam, everyone.
Oh, this is Wael Zayat.
How many Waels do you know?
I don't know. I thought there was somebody else in Florida.
The CEO is always watching, man. So look, for folks on the call, there's not going to be any comparison between a Biden administration. I mean, heck, any administration and what Trump has done on immigration, especially when it comes to Muslim immigration. Biden is committed to restoring and actually increasing the cap under Obama, which was 85,000. He wants to get it to 125,000 refugees. What's important for us, Farouk, is to understand from him how he is going to ramp up the resources. Because right now, what Trump has done, he's created a real mess. There's a backlog of cases. So beyond just saying that he wants to reach those numbers is how and what kind of resources he's going to dedicate to agencies like USCIS that has case officers that do these interviews. Like the Department of Homeland Security sends case officers for refugees to places like Kenya and Jordan and Turkey and the refugee camps in Greece. And it's just a matter of how quickly can they process. And then on the back end here, you can imagine there's also a need to ramp up capacity in the different agencies. Like, when we talk about a refugee or, even an immigrant, there's like 9 security agencies that will do the vetting, unfortunately. So there's a resources component. And then also during the Trump, not Trump, during Obama, we had the Visa Waiver Program Improvement and Terrorist Travel Protection Act. What happened here is that they said, look, if you are coming from a certain country, this is during Obama, like Syria or like Iraq, I think, or like Jordan. I'm not sure if Jordan was included, but like basically, Arab Muslim countries, you're going to need to go through a waiver program and then you'll get the visa. But what happened is that many people never got those waivers because they were stuck in administrative hold for years before Trump took over. So beyond just promising to increase the refugee cap, we need to know what's going to happen to reform these pre-Trump systems that hindered the travel of not just refugees, but regular, people who wanted a tourist visa or a work visa to come and speak at a conference in the US who just happened to be Muslim. So it's a real issue that we just want to make sure that he has, that he is aware of it, and he has, on his policy groups, folks really looking into this and ready on day one to start rectifying this situation and not waste, the first 2 years of his administration to show some progress.
Yeah, and that's a really good question, or series of questions. So there's a couple of things that I'll say, and I'm not going to have a complete answer on the last piece, but on the first piece, we're definitely committed to increasing the resources, both at State Department and USCIS, and whatever resources we need abroad. Unfortunately, this administration has really, as you know, has gutted many of our federal agencies, especially with the State Department, and the morale of the average career civil servant is terrible right now. So I think there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of increasing the personnel. I think that we're also committed to reviewing policies, some of which we've already committed to. One of the things that came up in one of my meetings was, and this is not really directly connected to immigration, but just kind of an example, is the no-fly list of and Muslims. It's easy to get on; it's impossible to get off. Biden's committed to reviewing those things, or those lists, how they're developed, how names get on, how they're managed, and coming up with a process for Muslims, or really anyone who shouldn't be on it, to get off of the list. That's going to be a universal issue with other things like and I think more related to what you're talking about is the CARP, Controlled Application Review and Resolution Program, which is what a lot of people, especially from Muslim majority countries, get stuck on for these security reviews and things like that, and they just never get an answer. One of the things that I've done, and while through Mgage and other Muslim organizations and Arab American organizations are part of this group, we're starting to talk about what are the domestic policy issues that our communities care the most about, and we're kind of running through a list of like the top 10 things, and we're going to convene with our campaign's policy team and discuss some of these questions, especially the last one that Wael raised is a really important one. So I don't have a clear answer for you on that, but it's something that I'm tracking and that we're hoping that we can get some commitments from, similar to what we got on the no-fly list and other things like that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, next up we have Saad Khan. Saad?
Hey everybody. I put my question in the chat. Let me see if I can bring it back up here. Oh, I was just wondering if there'd be a similar program on the Biden campaign proper for hiring statewide Muslim coalition directors.
I hope so. And I know we did that in Florida in 2016, and I'm going to push for it. One of the challenges that I have is just not knowing what our posture is going to be in terms of state hiring in general. Coronavirus has really thrown a monkey wrench into our hiring plans. But assuming we are operating in some normalcy in the next couple of months, which I'm very skeptical of personally, I intend to push for that.
Okay.
In the meantime, you guys are stuck with me, so.
Thank you. Next up is Khalid Mirza. Khalid, are you with us? Okay. I don't see him signed in, so we're going to move on. I'm sure he'll come back. No, there he is. Let me unmute him. Hello, Brother Khalid. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
There you are.
Okay, I'm just hoping and praying Joe Biden will be better president than Obama. Even we thought Obama was the best for the Muslims, but at the end, I think he did a lot of damages to the Muslim Ummah and Muslim countries. And we need to educate more our community over here, how to get involved, why to get involved. I think this is always my same complaint all the time. We are not spending much time to educating our communities, why to get involved. So I think that's a missing part. So I hope Farouk can maybe have some kind of plans for that, engaging Muslims, why we should be involved in the politics and doing our voters. And this is the missing part, I think. We are not doing much.
Yeah, and some of that, I mean, obviously we have a role to play from the campaign's perspective, and I'm spearheading that. But there's also a really important role for outside organizations to play in that, Engage and others. You know, this is, I'm going to put my Joe Biden hat aside for a minute. This is really, you know, an election about us, right? As a community, we were demonized by Trump. The Muslim ban was what put him on the map in the summer of 2015. And he's literally been using Muslims as red meat for his hardcore supporters. And at some point, I think we have to tell our communities that who cares who the other guy is to some degree. We need to make a statement that we're not going to be used as a political tool. And if somebody's going to punch us like that, we're going to punch them back. So I think that there's a role to be played for us just from a community perspective. Obviously, you know, Joe Biden is doing a good job, I think, better than anyone's done so far in a general election, because I know Bernie Sanders did a really good job in the primary, engaging Muslims and raising our voices. Part of it is how do we amplify and talk about Muslims who are doctors and business owners and first responders, especially in the climate that we're in now. You know, I've seen some of our virtual events that Joe Biden himself has been doing where I see Muslim nurses and doctors that are part of the conversation, right? So we definitely want to keep that going and continue to elevate the community's profile within the campaign.
But the question is, can you hear me?
Yes.
But again, I think it's a good thing we are planning. But my question always is, who's going to do it, you know? So that's the problem. We say a lot of things, but we don't do in reality. And this is the thing, every couple of years we get together, new election, we talk and do all those things. But there's no change. But I never saw anybody doing some kind of education and bringing us those grassroots level people on the table and explaining them why they have to vote, what is the benefit. We are not done. We have done very, very poor job on this thing for the last so many years. And I don't see anything, any plan anywhere. So that's my always the frustration, you know. We say a lot of things, but in reality, nothing happens.
Well, I'll kick the can to Sister Yemen on that one because I feel like they've been doing a lot of work. So feel
But
free.
you look to me also engaged guy from the last 15 years I've seen your face. I'm just kidding now. I'm not punching on you, you know. But again, I think, again, to be honest, we need to have a plans how to engage the common person, common Muslim, or regular community, or minority communities in our locations. We are not doing that. And again, I'm kind of rough guy. I just want to see. We have not done much for that. You know? We just.
I'll give you my commitment that if you're willing and able to organize something like this with your friends and contacts, let's do it. Like we can do more of these types of events.
Okay. So,
I'm willing to do it.
We do all the time. But again, we need to have some kind of plans and who's going to do it, how we can do it, where we can do it, and go from there. We just need to put some plan together, just beyond just giving a talk and we can do this thing. And it's not happening for the last so many years, you know.
Yeah, sure.
So I don't know who will do it. I don't know, but I'm saying this is a missing part.
Well, Yemen, do you want to comment on that? Because I think that's something that you might have more to say about.
Yeah. So for engagement for Get Out to Vote, we have nationally and then locally here in Florida for 100,000 voter IDs that we're doing this year. We've already, targeted 25,000. I know the community is very engaged in the message, but we have a large community that we engage in canvassing that are outside the Muslim community, in which we also engage the Arab American and the AAPI community, in which we do a lot of van access for that. So I understand the frustration sometimes within the community when it comes to face always being in the same areas. But what we try to do is engage those voters by their doors, by their phone numbers. And we did it really well that we are sponsored by different foundations getting funded because of the work that we're doing and capturing that data. We don't have a problem with the Muslim community voting on presidential. What's our problem is really on local. And that's what we try to push more. The presidential campaigns, we always turn out over 60%. And Engage has put 22% points up for the voting. So it's not that we don't engage the community. It's the community is very engaged in charity and very engaged in only the religious institutions. And I think that we also have to understand there's outside the community, we have colleges, we have universities, we have young professionals that are engaging, and their voting records are doing well by this engagement. Now, the question is, should we have more grassroots talks with the leaders in the community, engaging them and educate them? I think yes. I think that's something that that's why we're holding these conversations and engaging the community and getting them involved with the leaders in the community. But on a grassroots level, just last year, we targeted 68,000 voters, American Muslim voters. And I think that was a great, and we also work with the AAPI community and partner up with 25 organizations. So I think that this is another way of learning to market. I'm gonna be honest with you, this is the first year, I think that Olivia could say that we've never had really a social media presence because we're always on the ground. But I think this is a great opportunity for our community that we were able to engage them on a social media platform in which we got to know what their needs are, but we're also understanding what are the policies. That's why we're holding this. What are the policies and what are the things that they are? But voting this year, you look forward to get mailers. You're going to be looking forward to getting a lot of phone calls from us. If we haven't harassed you on the phones, we still are going to keep doing that. But we know you guys are our leaders, so sometimes it's our fault for not engaging more. But we will have those calls and Zoom meetings as we do right now at this moment. So thank you, Khalid, Brother Khalid, and thank you always for our support. And I can count on you for being straightforward and straight up. That's why I have so much love for our leaders in our community. But thank you so much, and I appreciate it. If I hope I answered that question. But
okay, let me ask you a question. How many Muslim voters we have in Florida?
So we have in our data 98,000 voter files.
Okay. Again, you say you're doing a lot of things in the universities and schools and outside the Muslim community. I think it'll be even encouraging for Muslims, for us. Just let us know this month you have went to so many places and what you did, So this way we can talk, okay, we are trying to engage. We have no idea who we're engaging, we're not engaging. So we're talking if I talk myself as an individual, it's meaningless. When you talk as engaged, it's a big thing, So if you guys doing something like that, we should know that. And we say, hey guys, this month we did so many visits, so many meetings, and so many people, so many schools. And we can maybe follow up with that too, I understand that a lot of people don't go to masjid, but a lot of people go to masjid too. But again, and they have family and friends and neighbors. They can also talk to them too, So again, I'm old-fashioned. I'm not a media guy. I don't this as TV, internet stuff. I do yellow pad thing. I still like to talk to people face to face, and I believe in a high touch than high tech. So I like to shake hands and touch people, So again, it's my 2 cents. I will the next person. I don't want to take more time. Thanks.
No, I agree, and I will be coming to Miami Miskin Gardens. I moved down, so you'll see my face more often.
Okay, there. Good. Let me know when you come, please.
I will definitely.
In advance, not same day. 12 o'clock, I'm coming. No, I need to have some time and let me know what time and where.
I'm waiting for the biryani. I'm coming.
Okay, I will cook for you.
Exactly.
Just to quickly add to that, to give you an idea of the numbers that Yemen was talking about, we're working right now with a Muslim universe of 28,200 voters. Out of those, though, we're trying to focus on the low propensity voters, which is 32,224. And those are the people who don't necessarily always show up to vote. And we're going to be heavily pushing 53,860 mailers, which we just got funding thanks to Yemen. And we're going to be getting 3 rounds of mailers for them. And we're predicting that through hand dials, phone bankers, predictive dialers, and also texting, we're going to be aggressively pushing the additional 68,193. So it's a lot of work. We're looking forward to it. Okay, next up is, let me go up that list. I'm sorry. Nadia Ahmed, are you with us, Nadia?
Yes, I'm here. Okay, Assalamu alaikum. The question that I had is really about what are efforts that the Biden campaign is doing to bring Muslim issues front and center? I know there's like this idea to bring our issues to the table, but I think they also need to be brought front and center, especially about issues relating to Kashmir and India. And I know that we've really been motivated by foreign policy concerns and issues relating to our own self-interest, such as immigration. But I think that, I think the first question that was asked during this this call about, what is the Biden campaign going to do that's different than the Obama campaign? And also, I think that even though we have high numbers of voter registration, we're really up against Trump. And in Florida, and I live in deep red Trump country, and I see all these Confederate flags and bumper stickers. There's so how are we going to counter that? Because I've seen that they think that even Trump's response to the pandemic is good. And so what is I'm really scared that I'm going to see another Trump presidency unless we have somebody that people can really rally around and get excited in ways that they haven't before.
Yeah, sure. So I just posted a link in the chat box for our Muslim America agenda. I don't know that the Obama campaign never did anything like that. The Obama campaign never hired or brought on anyone to do Muslim engagement this early on, or maybe even barely at all. And when they did, they kind of buried them somewhere and hoped that nobody noticed them. Unfortunately, I got brought on. I was given the title of senior advisor, which is not easily given by any presidential campaign. For those of you who have been around presidential campaigns, they gave a press rollout to me in Michigan before the primary. That rarely happens in a presidential cycle for a coalition's person. And third of all, I've got access to all of the top people in our campaign to talk about all these things that we're talking about. And when you look at that Muslim American agenda, a lot of what we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks or months has gone into that. And there's more to do, obviously, but I think that's a starting point. And obviously, we're going to keep refining and adding and doing more. So I think bringing our issues to the forefront is something that's really important. Even before I came on, Biden was consistently talking about the Muslim ban and how that was un-American, repealing it, things like that. So I think our issues are at the forefront. Obviously, there's a lot of other groups, a lot of other communities, and there's always a tension around what you're focusing on. And I would say right now, especially over the last 2 months, COVID has taken front and center with almost everything we're doing for obvious reasons. And I think that dovetails into your second question, which is we've been on message, especially if you follow us on Joe Biden on Facebook and Instagram and others. We've been very consistent in our message about coronavirus, drawing the contrast between how Joe Biden would respond versus how Donald Trump has responded. And he's been very clear on what his plans would be and how he would be different. So I think that's one area where if people are very concerned, and we've focused a lot of messaging around that. More to come, but I think also it comes down to policy and some of the other policies that I mentioned, especially the collaboration between the Sanders campaign and our campaign. We've adopted policies of some of the former rivals like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. We just rolled out working groups on 6 policy areas between the two campaigns, which include topics like healthcare, immigration, criminal justice reform, climate change. And we've got people from both sides on these policy groups, AOC being one of them, Dr. Abdul El-Sayed from Michigan being another on the healthcare committee, to actually talk about what more can be done on policy. So more will come, but I think that there is a lot to get excited about from a policy perspective, and there will be much more.
Thank you, Farouk. Next up, we have Khalid Munir.
Thank you, Farouk, for your leadership and your guidance to our organization. My question is simple. Since George W. Bush times, these leaders have always let us down. They promise a lot and they deliver a little. Is there any way you can get all of this stuff that you've been telling us that he's going to do in writing so we can hold their feet to the fire later?
A lot of it's in writing on that web page that I sent you. And it's in writing in a lot of the other places on our website. So when we put out policy, it's all in writing. Even the thing that I said about the no-fly list, although it's not on our website, we've been talking about them in our surrogate talking points. We've got these conversations with others on the campaign. We're talking about these things. Part of this is making sure that the administration, if Joe Biden wins, reflects the diversity of the country, that Muslims and others have a seat at the table to be in and to work on some of the issues that not only that are broader for all Americans, but even issues that our communities care about. And Joe Biden has also said in writing in our Ramadan statement that when he becomes president, the White House will be open for Muslims, and he is looking forward to working with Muslim government civil servants that'll work in his administration. And that's really important to making sure that some of these things get done.
But I mean, what I meant to say was, have you got it in writing from his officials?
It's
So
in writing
later
on our
Say, hey,
website.
guys, you told us this, and no, you're not doing it.
It's on our, those things that are on our website are cleared by our policy team, our political team. I mean, just to get one document like that out, like 50 people have to review it. So, I mean, it's in writing on the website. Even the Ramadan statement took a lot of review. I mean, everything is in writing, what I'm saying.
Because he's already flipping back a little. On the other day, he put out a statement that he's not going to ask Israel to move their capital back to Tel Aviv. He's going to keep Jerusalem as a capital.
Well, just to be clear, he's not flip-flopping on that. That's been his position from the get-go. He's never wavered from that position. Now, when we moved our embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, Joe Biden was critical of that at the time, and he very clearly said that that was a mistake and that it should not be done, especially with no concessions from the Israelis. He's committed to a two-state solution, and he's committed to putting the political capital into getting that done. I will also say that his position is not different from Bernie Sanders, and you can look at what Bernie Sanders said publicly on that issue, where he also said that he did not support moving the embassy back to Tel Aviv. So he has not flip-flopped on that issue. That's been his position from the get-go.
Any ideas who the VP is going to be?
No, that's above my pay grade.
Oh, you need to get promoted then.
Well, I mean, look, it's a long process, and all of us have some voice in it. But there's a lot of vetting, and there's a lot of things that happen in that process that are beyond what I'm responsible for doing. There's a separate group of people that's working just on that. So it's not really about promoting or not. It's more about roles and responsibilities.
He said it's going to be a woman.
Yeah, he did say it's going to be a woman.
All right, well, thank you so much. Next up, we have Nader Abara. Nader, are you with us?
Yep, I'm here. How's it going, Farouk?
Good. How are you?
Okay, it's been a while. I'm glad you touched on Bernie Sanders. My question, or make a comment first. Traditionally, the Muslim community has been a conservative vote, shifting left every year. However, this year there's been a more dramatic shift to the left, and with most Muslim voters voting for Bernie Sanders and a progressive platform. Now, Joe Biden is a centrist, and he prides in the fact that he can cross both sides of the aisle. However, as a Muslim community, if we're looking more towards progressive values and policies, what are the steps your campaign or your administration would take to close that gap between being the centrist candidate, but also catering towards the progressive base that's ever growing?
Yeah, I can talk about that for a couple minutes. So first of all, when Biden became the nominee, we started looking at well, he's not technically the nominee, the presumptive nominee. We started looking at the policy positions of all of the other candidates that ran, Tom Steyer, Bernie Sanders, and everyone in between. And we looked at what we could adopt. Joe Biden took and adopted Elizabeth Warren's bankruptcy bill, which is very progressive. He also adopted part of Bernie's education policy on free college tuition for those who make $125,000 or less. Bernie was saying for everyone. He modified it, but he essentially adopted it to benefit the working and middle class. Beyond that, we've got these committees that I mentioned between the two campaigns that are going to be working on 6 policy areas, some of which I mentioned. And we also made a deal with Bernie's campaign to where they could keep many of the delegates that he earned going into the convention, which is very abnormal to happen for those of you who've been around presidential politics for a while. The presumptive nominee usually gets all the delegates and we move on. We've made a deal to say, hey, Senator Sanders, we respect what you've done. We want to make sure your voices are at the table at the platform committee. You can keep some of these delegates. Finally, I'll say that I don't think Biden is a centrist. I think he's a pragmatist. But if you look at his agenda on criminal justice reform, on immigration, on education, on healthcare, it is a progressive agenda, even on foreign policy. So I think I would challenge people to really take a close look and really look at what he's been saying and make the judgment for yourself. But I would argue that he is a progressive and his agenda will be the most progressive of any Democratic nominee.
Okay, well, quick one then. If that's maybe his perception in the mainstream that he is a centrist, what are you guys doing to combat that and instill the progressive image?
I think part of it is doing things like this, right? Like we have people like me and others that are constantly talking to people. I think we're getting him out there virtually, at least, to talk to people. We're constantly meeting with progressive groups and either telling them where we stand or adopting some of their positions. So I think there's a massive outreach effort that we're doing, and we're just going to continue to scale it, and hopefully we can make some headway in the communication side.
Okay,
Great.
good
Thank you,
stuff.
Nabil. Next
Thank
up,
you.
we have Saima
We need
Siddiqui.
you all to help us with that too. So with your friends and colleagues, like
I'll be here. Many of them are on the call, so maybe
Yeah.
they'll get to ask some questions.
Yeah, definitely.
Saima, are you with us? Hello, Saima?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Hey, Farouk.
Hey.
I guess it's not so much a question, it's an observation. And I hear all the policy discussions and I think the people on the phone pay attention to that, and bringing it to our attention is good, and we do the best we can to put it out there into our circles. But I think, and I guess everybody knows this election is going to be won on the margins, right? This is not going to be a blowout for anyone. And so for someone who wants Biden to win and who will be voting for Biden, what I don't see is sort of a breakout moment for his campaign to reach voter banks like ours. And we're not the only ones. He has to reach many others, but to generate that enthusiasm. And I wonder, and I don't know how that's going to happen, but it hasn't happened, because I know the Muslim community needs to do a lot of work. And I think those of us on the call are fully aware of that, where our deficiencies lie and the gaps we need to fill. But on the part of the Biden campaign, I think they need to generate enthusiasm for their campaign. I think Bernie bar is too high, but there is a bar already been set, right? Where I've had friends who've never been involved, who actually went out and did phone banking for Bernie Sanders. They'd never done it before. It's just because it reached out to him. And I think Biden will have to do that for small pockets of voter banks, which when collectively put together will make the difference on the margins. And, putting these things out there at some point has to come directly from the candidate too. He doesn't have to do it all day long, but it would be nice to have him on mainstream media put out something once. I appreciate that he can't do it all the time. We are not his top priority. But I think he'll have to do that for all the niche voting banks to break through all the noise, to generate the enthusiasm that is currently missing.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we are working on engagements like that with him. I will tell you, which I forgot to mention, on Eid Day, we're actually doing a meet and greet with Jill Biden. I know that's not Joe Biden, but we're doing something with his wife on Eid at 6 p.m. I'm just waiting for the final details, and I'll send out invitations. But that's just step one, right? Like I've been on the job for about less than 60 days. Right. The goal is that we've been building and building and building, and it'll culminate with also engagements with him. So definitely agree, and we're working on that, and it will happen.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Thank you, Saima. Next up is Imad Mahu.
Yes, hi. I have a couple of questions actually about the Middle East, if you can hear me.
Sure.
And also, I actually would like to say just before I go to my questions about the centralist, or if he's in the middle of the aisle. I honestly believe he's in the middle of the aisle, and the only reason he is adapting this progressive agenda because in 2020 there is no way for a Democratic nominee not to adapt such an agenda where we are not guaranteeing health care as a human rights, while the rest of the advanced world is guaranteeing that, where we are spending the double in the price per capita per person, more than the rest of the advanced world. If Canada can do it, and Scandinavian countries and Germany and England can do it, the United States, the wealthiest country in the history of the world, can do it as well. So this is those kind of a progressive items that a Democratic nominee in 2020 has to adapt. He would not really grasp that. This is my statement on the centralist or progressive. But my questions towards the Middle East are three parts, to be honest with you. I am an Arab American. I'm from Syria. My first question will be, will Joe Biden hold the Saudi Arabia accountable for the war crimes they have been doing in Yemen, where he stopped the funding and for the all the funding for the weapon deals with Saudi Arabia? The second question, that's the first question. The second question will be, is Joe Biden going to bring the Palestinian and the Israelis to the table and be a fair moderator for that kind of a peace deal and not being on the side of Israel? I know he's not going to move back the embassy from Jerusalem out of Jerusalem, but at least is he going to promise to be in the middle of the table and not just be on the side of Israel and actually say like what Bernie say, Israel is an apartheid state with a very bad government that is actually violating human rights of the Palestinians or the Arab neighbors. The third question will be about Syria, my country. The Obama administration has failed the Syrian people and left us to be killed and slaughtered by al-Assad regime. And I was one of the victims of the torture that happened in Syria back in 2011. I was held in a prison. I was tortured for over 100 days. And Obama in 2012 drew many red lines, and he said he would not let Assad use chemical weapons, where Assad actually did use chemical weapons. And the tally numbers for the civilian casualties were around 1,300 people who got slaughtered in the middle of the night in Al-Ghouta, which is eastern of Damascus. Will Joe Biden hold the Syrian regime accountable for all those war crimes they have been committing since 2011 and continuously doing this today for the Syrian people? Will Joe Biden fix the mistake that the Obama administration did by allowing Russia have a footnote in the Middle East, and now it's way much bigger of a problem to solve than it used to be back in 2011. Now you are facing Russia, you're not only facing Assad and Iran and its militia in the Middle East. And one last point to that, like the Middle East has been a very a red zone. Like it's been war after war after war since 1946. What is Joe Biden going to try to do? I know there is no solution for the Middle East, but those three problems are the main, to be honest with you right now. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. And I'll answer all three of them very quickly. First, when Joe Biden announced his candidacy in 2019, the first major foreign policy issue he addressed was the war in Yemen. And he committed to not giving Saudi Arabia a blank check and committed to ending the war in Yemen. So you can look back for over a year ago, he said that. The second part of your question on Palestine and Israel, Joe Biden's been very clear. He supports a two-state solution. He does not support the one-sided negotiations with Benjamin Netanyahu, which really aren't even negotiations. He's committed to bringing both sides back to the table. He's committed to reopening the U.S. consulate in East Jerusalem. He's committed to working to open the PLO office in Washington. He's committed to restoring humanitarian and economic aid to the Palestinians. And he came out very strongly recently and before that, including in front of AIPAC, against annexation of the West Bank. And he was very clear that these are counter to what should be democratic principles in Israel. So he is committed to doing that and to bringing both sides to the table and leveraging his relationships with both sides to bring them together, hopefully to get to a two-state solution. On Syria, and we've had a lot of conversations about Syria. I wish, Wael was still on because he was part of them from Mgage. Look, this administration has fumbled Syria. Biden has essentially said that he's recommitting to working with our allies and partners in Syria, including groups like the Syrian Democratic Forces on the ground in Syria. He's committed to providing diplomatic support to Turkey with what they're doing in Idlib to stave off the Assad regime. And he's committed to increase humanitarian leadership and increased humanitarian support. What some of the Syrian groups asked in one of our conversations was, will you commit to force? And the answer was basically, look, we realize some of the mistakes that were made in the Obama administration, and we're open to all options. We don't know what we're going to inherit if Biden becomes president, so they're not committing to anything like that right now. But they were very clear with the Syrian American institutions that we met with that they will have a voice and that they will be listened to anytime they have a good idea. It will be strongly considered. And they were at least happy that some of the mistakes were acknowledged and that they will have a seat at the table as this topic develops in a Biden administration.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Next up is Iqbal. Iqbal, are you with us?
Hey, Olivia. Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Farouk, I have the core question pertaining to India right now, because recently we have seen the report from United States Commission on International Religious Freedom. India has been elevated to tier 1 country of particular concern, where India is considered to be the largest democracy in the world. But now they are building, world largest concentration camps for Muslims, and they are introducing prejudice and inhumane laws to persecute, oppress, and torture and marginalize Muslims through NRC, which is a National Register for Citizen, and CAA, which is Citizenship Amendment Act. Basically, Modi is the product of RSS, and RSS founders basically have admired and inspired the Hitler policies that they have. He persecuted Jews, and based on those policies, this party was created 95 years ago. Is a very vicious terrorist organization, and also this has a big presence in US as well. And they are regularly collecting and remitting huge funds to India to use against Muslims, Christians, and causing human rights violation. And their main focal agenda is to make either minorities get frightened or free India free from these minorities. So my question is, how Biden is going to respond to such apartheid government who pretends to be the largest democracy of the world, but building world's largest concentration camps. The United States always remain steadfast in defending democratic values, freedom, and human rights, and hold these prejudiced governments accountable. So how do you see India will be held accountable for bringing and introducing inhumane and prejudice laws against minorities, particularly Muslims?
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. And this is another topic that we've had some very deep conversations about with some of our senior policy people, because we know that it's been a big concern for the community. Look, there's a few things on India. One is that what Biden has said is he's very concerned about what's happening right now in India. And actually, this is addressed in our Muslim fact sheet that somebody just posted. And he has basically said that these measures that are happening both in Kashmir and with the CAA and the NRC, that these are contrary to India's traditional values of maintaining a secular, multi-ethnic democracy. So he's very concerned about it. He has committed, not just in this case, but in other cases as well, to really having the tough conversations that Donald Trump is not willing to have with our allies. And India is obviously an ally, and everybody accepts that, and everybody knows that India is a strategic partner to the United States. What Biden has said is that I'm willing to carry the moral credibility that we've lost under Trump and to have tough conversations with Prime Minister Modi or Netanyahu or others on some of these issues. He's also talked about strengthening our State Department. You know, when things have come up, when career civil servants have raised these issues in this administration, the Secretary of State and the White House have given no cover whatsoever. So I think philosophically, this will be a priority for him in his foreign policy, especially towards India. He's called it out and said he's very concerned about it, and has called it out for being anti-democratic. More to come. I think we have to be part of the conversation on what that actual step looks like. One of the things that he's committed to is holding a democracy summit as soon as he's elected, and assuming we can have something like that in person at that time, but really holding countries that come to the democracy summit accountable to having concrete steps they've committed to. And he's basically said, if you're not going to make a commitment towards democracy and making changes, then you're not going to come. We're not going to give a platform to any government that is doing things that are against democracy, and we're going to call it out. So that's, you know, more to come on that. You can check out the Muslim fact sheet on our website and see exactly what we've said on the issue.
Thank you.
Thank you, Iqbal. So Farouk, the next question is for me. I wanted to address the humanitarian crisis on the border. As a Mustino, a Muslim Latino, I do a lot of work with Mustino Times when it comes to not just helping the people on the border, but also making sure that what's happening in their countries is being secured. So I know that when he was Vice President, Biden, he led a major bipartisan effort and he secured $750 million. I believe it was for El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. So my question is, does he plan to continue to do this in his presidency? Has he talked about any sensible policies, or maybe just creating more reform for the asylum process, or, you know, gathering more judges for the people who are stuck at the border?
All of the above. This is another area that I think is something we can get excited about. He has been very clear in saying that he will surge judges to the border to properly process asylum cases. He will end child separation, and he will invest in Central America. I mean, he's been very empathetic about this. He has said that it's not easy for someone to just drop everything, their family, their belongings, everything, and just start literally, in many cases, walking to the US. And he's said that, how do we make people's lives better? By improving civil society, supporting economic development, supporting rule of law initiatives. And he's come up with a number. I don't know exactly, I don't have it off the top of my head. I think it's like $450 million or something of investment into Central America. So all of those things are priorities for him.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, I'll talk to you more about that offline. Next is Mark Najami. Are you still with us, Mark?
Yep, I'm still here.
Thank you.
Nice to talk to everybody. I have to share that I think the policy questions have been spectacular. And I think the fact that Farouk is able to articulate them so well in such a wide variety of topics and that are all so important is wonderful. I think, though, that I'm hearing a lot of less than enthusiastic response to Biden. Mm-hmm. And I think that concerns me greatly. The primary is over. Biden is the choice, and you only have two. It's going to be Biden or it's going to be Trump. And unless there's more enthusiasm that's garnered for Biden, we are possibly looking at the horror of another 4 years of Trump. And we need to have talking points. We need to pivot, because he is left of center. He's not nearly as progressive as was Bernie Sanders. That's just a fact. Mm-hmm. But we have a seat at the table. With Trump, you're not even in the House, let alone having a seat at the table. And so when there's people to articulate what the very important issues are, he's listening. I hosted him at my home in September. He's brilliant, he's a smart guy. He knows as much about every issue as probably anybody in the world. And he'll strike a balance on many of them. I hear some of the Bernie supporters, and y'all are wonderful. You've helped change the direction and then created a dialogue that was so needed, particularly as it relates to healthcare and matters such as that. And I think the healthcare issue, particularly in light of COVID-19 right now, so many people are going to find themselves without the care that they thought that they had. So I think those are very timely issues. But unless we get it together and understand that there's only one other alternative here, and that's Trump. And so we get the talking points that speak to the important talking points that are identified and speak to the community. Most here are policy people. They understand policy. They're intellectuals. That's not the average person. And that's not to minimize a single word or comma that anybody has enunciated here. But I'm very distressed that when I'm hearing people starting to suggest and put it into the dialogue who he is and what he is. He's a noble person, who's an intellectual, who cares about people passionately. And you contrast that to the heartless demagogue that's currently in office. And if we don't understand that, and we sit at home, and the community sits at home, then we'll potentially have a repeat of what we had. There's no question, in 2008, I was with Obama. I was with him a few times. And I talked to him about these issues, some of them. He didn't care. I shouldn't say he didn't care. He was afraid of them. He stayed away from them. Biden's embracing them. Might disagree with some of the points, might just because of political practicalities not accept others, but he gets it. He's a compassionate human being, has had a history of that. And I think the focus, respectfully, needs to be, and I agree with you, Farouk, I don't think that there's going to be any rallies anytime in the near future. I think that we need to get ready, just like the government was unprepared for the virus. I think we're unprepared for an election where people are still going to be largely at home. If we listen to the scientists in the medical community, we're going to have a second wave of this. And if people are at home, I think we need to get in front of it and start teaching people how to absentee ballot, how that they know how to, they're educated with that, and that they understand that they can absentee ballot rather than going to the poll. And that might actually increase substantially the breadth and the strength of the community. But I think that needs to be a focus right now with the campaign, getting everybody educated so that's their default, that they plan on voting absentee. There's more, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on everything. And Mark, I'm glad you joined. I know our paths cross every cycle.
Sure.
It'd be great if you could help us organize something like this in the Arab American community in Orlando, and we can do an event. I can bring the person on our campaign who's working Arab American issues, and it'd be great to do that if you're open to it.
Respectfully, Farouk, the challenge is that the people that would show are the activists. Mm-hmm. And it's always the 10-90 rule, the 10% are on this call right now. The other 90% aren't. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, that's always the situation. Do I think that, you and those that you're fortunate to be involved with need to create an online invitation for a 30-minute listening to Biden? He comes across great personally, much better than he does with the televised debates. Mm-hmm. But, if there was a 30-minute where everybody could watch him, it would be impossible to do questions and answers unless there was a few that were predetermined that speak to the needs and the wants of the community. But that would, I think, because you're not going to have Trump doing that, right?
Yeah, no, and we will have opportunities like that with Biden, no question.
Yeah, I do want to say one other thing on my notes that I wrote. Although yes, people have moved more and more to the left, and I've always been to the left of center, but I wasn't as far left as Bernie. And I think it's important to point out that many within the community are economic. Many of them are going to look at their pocketbooks, and they're business people, they're entrepreneurs. They own their own stores and businesses, and they're doctors, and they're and they're engineers, and they look at the economy. And I think it's important to let that be overshadowed by the other all important issues. But I don't think it's a slam dunk that everybody within the community is going to all, just go for Biden. I think there has to be, you have to have race and talking points that speak to that other side of the community that many on the further left of the community are maybe not as sensitive to.
Yeah, agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Next up, we have Muqtadir Naim.
Hello. Hi, Farooq.
How are you? Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Thank you for your leadership. My question is regarding about delegate members, especially Biden. How many delegate members in Florida right now in a Biden campaign? And as we know, and I know also, in a District 22, we have Saima Faruqi and Khurram Wahid. They've been selected. So what is the policy and selection procedure for rest of the Florida, especially the Muslims? How many Muslims delegate members in Florida? Please let us know. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I have no idea. I really don't, but I will look into it for you and see if there's somebody who does. It's probably a better question for the state party, I would think. I'm not even sure if anyone on our campaign would know, but let me look into that and I'll see if I can get you an answer.
Sure. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Muqtadir. And next we have Mehmet. Mehmet, are you with us? Let me unmute him.
Hold on.
Here you are.
I am there, right? Oh. Yeah, actually, my question is pretty much answered by Farooq earlier, asked and answered. Just wanted to, this is my 2 cents, that I really think that if Biden is going to win, he's going to win because of the crisis that we are in. And if this continues on, otherwise, I don't think he was the number one choice of any Democrat to begin with. So seeing the future, saying that, let's say, okay, this crisis that we are having right now is behind us in a couple of months. Does Biden have strong campaign program and campaigning strategies that will make him look a lot better than Trump right now?
Yeah, I mean, look, I would argue that Biden was the choice of most Democrats. I mean, we won on Super Tuesday in states that he never even visited or even campaigned in, overwhelmingly won them. So I would disagree with you on that. But look, I think even if, inshallah, if we get out of this coronavirus in the next couple of months and we can have a normal campaign, yeah, I mean, we're ready to hire, we're ready to organize on the ground, we're ready to do events, we're ready to knock on doors, to do relational organizing. We just don't know if we can do it. But if we can, we're definitely ready to do it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Sounds exciting. Shabir, brother Shabir, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. Farooq, I got a question about it. Thank you very much, Farooq and Olivia, and everybody from the Engage to do this. The question I have about India, I mean, I just came back from India and the conditions are really bad than what is reported here.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 questions. Before Modi became the prime minister, the State Department had blocked his entry to USA. And, Trump has done to many Muslim leaders, they are not allowed to come here because of the human rights violation with the minority. Would Biden consider doing that? That's number 1. Mm-hmm. And number two, there is an organization here called World Hindu Council, which is the equivalent of Vishwa Hindu Parishad. It's the 501c3. They are offshoot of RSS in India. They collect a lot of money and send it to India. And a great number of the people who pay the money are H1B visa holders who work with large IT companies, and they match the fund. So they're raising a big chunk of money from here. And we have basically observers of RSS in South Florida, because I have received a lot of Indian Muslim who call me that when you do the protest on public places, they would like to participate, but these RSS observers, they photograph them and they send it back home, and their family gets harassed there. And when they go back to India, even they get questioned by immigration officer Indian airport. So it's a very active, we don't understand, we don't take it seriously, but the RSS branches are very, very active in this country. So would Biden consider revoking 501c3 status for World Hindu Council? I know it's a very powerful organization because big bosses of the IT companies are part of it. And lastly, yeah, that's about it. So
Yeah, look, I appreciate the questions. And trust me, the campaign is well aware of what Muslim communities' positions are on India. It's been a really hot topic, and we've had a lot of conversations around it. On your first question, I think if you asked him directly, he probably would say no. But I would say that it definitely wouldn't be a first step. I mean, I think Joe Biden wants to make sure that we're able to have a strong relationship with India on a lot of things, from trade to climate change to other issues. So I think he would like to figure out a way to address the issues without with using diplomacy and not resorting to revoking the prime minister's visa, for example. On the second question, I don't know. I mean, that would be something that would need to be raised probably to the IRS and the people that make those types of reviews at the time. I don't know that we have a position on whether we would revoke any organization's 501c3, but I think it would basically come down to, are they in compliance or not? I know Muslim organizations are always under the gun and feeling like they have to cross their I's or dot their I's and cross their T's more than anyone else. And I think it just should be a fair standard for everyone. But I don't know that the campaign has a position on that second question.
All right, thank you so much. I know we're all having a really good time here, and we're getting so much information. Thank you. I want to remind you that we're going to be back with Farouk on Sunday on May 17th at 5:30. But just to close out, we do have 2 pending questions. The next one is from Riaz Ansari, and then we're going to close out with Saad Khan, who has a follow-up question. Riaz, am I saying that right?
And I have another call at 3:30, so I'll try to, if we can get through them quicker, that would be better, so we can make sure everyone gets a chance.
Last 2. Are you with me? Let's see. Oh,
I'm here. I don't know if the person before me is still here.
Riaz Ansari, I just unmuted you. Do you hear us? Okay, Saad, go ahead. Jump in. I don't think that they're ready.
Hi. So basically, I'll make a comment and then I'll ask the question. The truth is, I'm voting for Biden because he's not Trump, and that is the only qualification. I would vote for a sock over Trump and frankly over Biden. Biden is a right-wing candidate. As a matter of fact, he said he'd consider running a Republican as vice president. He was a champion of the Iraq War. He pushed for the 1994 crime bill. I can go on about Biden's history. My question is simple. Is he going to embrace Medicare for all? Is he going to embrace a Green New Deal? I appreciate that he put AOC on that, I forgot what it was, but he put her on something on this.
The working groups of the Sanders campaign on climate change.
On a committee. Yeah, I appreciate that he did those things, but at the end of the day, is he going to embrace Medicare for all? Is he going to embrace the Green New Deal? Is he going to actually push towards a progressive agenda? Because until he does that, you can tell me as many times as you want, and with all due respect to you, that he's a progressive. He's not. What I really care is what he's going to do, because I'm voting for him in November, and I will tell people to vote for him in November only because he's not Trump. But I would primary him if he wins then in the next election for a progressive, because he's not the candidate we deserve. The Democrats pushed, this was a corporate takeover to get Biden into the nomination. So that's my question, just yes or no. Is he going to adopt Medicare for all? Is he going to adopt the Green New Deal? Is he going to adopt the more progressive policies of Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren?
Sure. So a couple of things. One is, I would argue that I will answer your questions very directly, but I do want to preface it by saying that, remember in the primary, Joe Biden was outspent. Joe Biden was out-campaigned by all the other candidates, including the progressives. I would beg to differ that it's a corporate takeover because we didn't have any money. I mean, literally, I was following the race. Like, we literally did not have money to
The
even
entire Democratic Party, including Barack Obama, and everyone coalesced around Biden in the end. This party is funded by billionaires and by corporations. So
look, we put out
I
our
appreciate
we put
that.
out
I just want
our financial fundraising report for the month of April. Joe Biden's average donation was $30.
he received donations from the fossil fuel industry, among others. He has donations from the healthcare industry. So
We also
like I
have not
said,
taken any corporate PAC money from from no corporate PACs. I mean, we can go back and forth on that, but I want to make sure that for everyone else, I want them to hear what my response is to that, your statement. You don't have to agree with me. I just want others to know that we didn't have the money to campaign in most of the states that were won on Super Tuesday. Yes, the party did coalesce around him. We also had an average donation of $30 last month and no corporate PAC money for Biden. I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. Now,
I understand, but my quick comment is this. Look, I can go, it's much easier to sell Biden if we're just honest about who he is and what we're trying to do. If you're, I know the Democrats, they're going to come, they're going to say, hey, this is the only choice you have against Trump. And therefore, we're forced into this position where we have to vote for somebody who's not ideal. But just be honest about that. Just call it for what it is. I know you work for the campaign.
By the way, I'm not a paid staffer for the campaign. I'm a volunteer, so I don't work as an employee. But look, I'll tell you what is honest. What is honest is that Joe Biden doesn't support Medicare for all, but he does support building on Obamacare. He does support a public option. He supports giving free access to the public option for the most marginalized that come from states that have not expanded Medicaid. He has agreed to reduce the age of accessing Medicare eligibility to 60. He's also said that the next round of stimulus for COVID-19 should include paid testing and treatment for coronavirus and government paying for the COBRA healthcare for those who lost their jobs due to coronavirus.
COBRA is expensive and no one can afford it. And come on.
That's what I'm
look,
saying. He is saying that the government should pay for COBRA.
I
Look, with all due respect, one of the issues that I have is that people are willing to talk and I'm willing to listen. But when I say something back, I expect people to listen to me and what we're saying, right?
I know. I'm just responding in real time to what you're saying, right? And the thing is,
I'm telling you that he has said that the government should pay for COBRA. Plain and
Okay,
simple.
I apologize. I didn't hear that.
Government should pay for COBRA. On education, he has said that for anybody making less than $125,000 a year, they should get free college tuition to a public school, to an HBCU or an MI. Their college debt should be wiped. Okay. On criminal justice reform, he supports decriminalizing cannabis. He supports eliminating private prisons. He supports eliminating the death penalty. He supports eliminating mandatory minimum sentencing. He supports no jail time for anyone on drug-related charges alone. We can talk about the crime bill. I get it. Like, I totally get it. But I'm telling you what he's saying today. Let's focus on that, right? On the environment, he has said that he embraces the Green New Deal as a framework, but he's got his own plan of how to address climate change, which is different than the Green New Deal. But look, he's embraced.
Can I follow up on that?
Yeah, please.
So if he's saying he supports the Green New Deal, how is he taking money from fossil fuel companies? Those two things don't make sense to me.
We have not taken any corporate money or any corporate PAC money. So if you want to send me that, I'm happy to respond to it.
Absolutely.
I just haven't seen it. And feel free, I'll put my email in the chat box.
Sure.
I just want to add to that. I know that when Biden was VP under Obama, he did a lot to push forward the Affordable Care Act. One of the reasons why I trust him on that side is that I know he's coming from a personal side. I know his first wife and his baby were killed in a car accident. And then also he lost his son, Beau, to brain cancer. And that has actually made him look at our healthcare in a very personal way. And as a granddaughter to, elderlies, I have an elderly grandmother who's very sick and an uncle. So I'm always keeping track of that. And I really appreciate that about Biden.
And look, Saad, with all due respect, like I agree. I respect your positions, and I'm glad that you voiced them, and I'm hearing them. I just want to make sure that I was telling everybody else on the call what my response was to what you were saying. And look, we need your vote. Your vote matters. We need every freaking vote. I don't really care why people are voting for Biden to some degree. Like you said, we got to get Trump out, and we need every single vote. And your vote matters. So I respect that, and I'm happy to take more time offline to have these conversations with you. If you want to send me any information, I'm happy to look at it, respond, etc.
Well, I appreciate that you listened. But as I said before, this party, it has to do better. We can talk about this for ages, but I'm voting, and I know many people are voting for him only because he's not Trump, and I hope that'll be enough. But I don't think it's not ideal for when he wins.
Well, let me ask you a question. Like some of the policies that I ran through that he's now saying, don't you think those are issues that people can get excited about, or do you think that you don't trust that they'll actually get implemented?
I don't trust that they'll get implemented. Okay. I believe that when you have money coming in from corporations, your mind changes a little bit, right? And we've been told the same thing from the Obama administration. Look, I'm not saying they haven't done good things. What I am saying is that their principles are compromised, and the Democratic Party's principles are compromised, because you cannot act in good faith when you're taking money from the same people you claim to be fighting against. And that's all I'll say about that. I don't want to take up too much time, but
no, I appreciate the comments.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Saad. We appreciate you being so informed. We love that. In fact, we hope that you will join us on Sunday, because we're going to have a part 2 for Tampa. We will have, of course, Farouk with us. It's going to be Sunday, May 17th at 5:30. I went ahead and posted the link here on the group chat just in case you didn't receive it. But there will be notices going out. Thank you so much, Farouk. We really
please spread the word. If anybody's interested in organizing something like this with me or somebody else from the campaign, I'm happy to make it happen. Florida, we have to win Florida. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah, no choice.
Thank you, Farouk.
Thank you, guys. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Farouk.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.